Hi guys, Jane here, and I'm actually going to talk today about receiving critiques. It has been a really rough week for me, and critiquing was involved, and it was more so with critiques that I gave than what I received. But I do want to talk to you about receiving critiques because it's something that's really hard to do, and getting used to being told that there's problems with your story is really, really hard. Whether you're being told that by editors or whether you're being told that by beta readers or critique partners, it is so easy to just say, well, they clearly don't understand what I was trying to do. If you are going to approach somebody to give you feedback on your book, you really need to be open to what they have to say. Now, that doesn't mean that what they say is right, but you should at least consider it. I was recently involved in a collaborative project with my physical writers group. We have a local writers group. They are amazing, and I love them. And we did this collaborative project together, and it's hopefully gonna be coming out in November or December. We don't have a full title, but as soon as it comes out, I will totally be announcing it. I'm stoked about this project. It's great. But anyway, there were 10 of us involved, and there were varying levels. There were several of us who had multiple books published, and then there were several people who, were working on their first novel. And they paired for developmental edits. We did a round of developmental edits, and then ultimately an editor, a person who has experience editing and who was not in the collaborative project, is going to edit the rest of it. That way we have fresh eyes. But I was paired with somebody who, is an up and coming author. She's working on her first book, and I'm excited about it. She's really got a lot of talent, and she's studied and she's enthusiastic. Anyway, she's great. But we did developmental edits for each other, and I was the one who has quite a bit more experience. So we're coming in and we're trading edits, and she started giving me the things that I'd done wrong. And of course, my first instinct, because it's every author's first instinct, is to dig their feet in the sand and go, what do you know? Now, I didn't say this to her, of course, because that's not what you do. But that was, of course, my gut response. What do you know? And then I looked at everything that she'd said. And every single thing that she made a note about, I looked at and I really thought about. By the time I was done doing my edits, I had changed probably 80% of what she'd noted. Now, I hadn't necessarily changed it how she'd noted it. She might have said, oh, you need to do this here. And I would be like, oh, I think there's a problem here, but I don't think that that's the answer. So I would go back and I'd make changes, but they weren't necessarily what she had said. But I do think it made the story way better, because when we're giving critiques as a reader. We don't have a dog in that fight. We are not close to it emotionally. We just want to share our reading experience. And so if you are receiving a critique, just be aware that you're looking at somebody else's experience, and you have to. I know the knee-jerk reaction is, no, I didn't make any mistakes, but you probably did. And your book will be better if you recognize that. I had several situations where I was being critiqued, and I was just like, I don't agree with any of this. But then when I went back and thought about it, I was like, oh, yeah, I can kind of see that. And it made my book stronger. And even I've had that with a cover, The Wolf's Pregnant Bride. My original cover, I got a really beautiful art design on it. It looks very historical. It's a Regency. The guy and the girl, Nathan and Sophronia, they're dancing. And I showed it to people, and they said, but this is supposed to be paranormal romance, right? I'm like, yeah, it's a paranormal historical, paranormal Regency. They're like, yeah, but paranormal has man chests. And, the thing is, my book wasn't selling, so I put a man chest on it, and guess what? It sold. They were right. The other thing they told me is originally the book was titled The Werewolf's Pregnant Bride, and they said, werewolf is more urban fantasy. Wolf is more paranormal romance. So I changed it. Instead of The Werewolf's Pregnant Bride, it's The Wolf's Pregnant Bride. And guess what? That upped the sales too. And I had a lot of ideas about what I was doing, but that I was trying out a new genre, and I really didn't know what I didn't know. So it's important when you are learning something, especially, to come into it open-minded and to reach out for help. And when you do, to at least take into consideration what people say. Also, just be polite. If somebody tells you something that you really don't agree with, or that, maybe is wrong, it's okay to not change that in your story. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you get to attack them. I recently read for somebody, and it was a bad experience. They were very upset with my criticisms of their story. And they'd asked for it, and I did it for free, so I mean, I don't know what you want. And it wasn't honest. It was one of the more honest criticisms I've given to anybody. But they had this character who was a very good character in the beginning of the story. And that character becomes very, very evil without any kind of transition and without really good reasons that I could tell. And it didn't happen in a progress that I could handle. And I told her so. I said, I felt betrayed as a reader that this character went evil. Without violating her privacy, and to give you an example that you can probably understand. This is almost like if you've read Harry Potter, if in the last book Molly Weasley turned out to be a Death Eater and started murdering the children. I mean, that was the kind of transition in this, abruptness in the transition in the story. You have this character who has been this loving, helpful, on your side character. There's never been any hint up until this point that there's more going on, and then suddenly she becomes the villain of the story. And I was just like, I felt betrayed as a reader because I like this character, and you didn't give me enough reason that she transitioned, and just, suddenly she's attacking my character, and I'm like, what are you doing? And this writer actually yelled at me. She said, it's my story, you don't get to feel betrayed. And I said, or I didn't say, because she actually ended the conversation and blocked me so that I couldn't respond. But the point was that as a reader, I can feel whatever I want. When you ask for me to give you criticism of your story, I'm telling you about my reader experience. Now, I can feel betrayed at your story. You can feel like that's unwarranted, and that's fine. But the fact is, if I experience something as a reader, that's what you're asking for. You're saying, what is your reader experience? If you're a writer, you need to know you're not writing for yourself if you're asking people to spend money on your book. If you're writing in your journals, if you're writing something that's never going to see the world, you can write whatever you want. And it can be cathartic, it can be ridiculous, it can be whatever. But if you're asking somebody to pay money to read your book, you need to be worried about reader experience. And if I'm telling you my reader experience is negative, you should at least think about whether you can change that. And it could be something different. I told her, I made suggestions and said it just wasn't hinted at very much. There was no question from the main character, oh, this person's doing some shady stuff, should I be worried? In Harry Potter, Snape could have gone either way. Like, obviously Snape ended up being good, but we kind of been hinted at the beginning that he might be evil. But then you had things like Dumbledore really trusts him. And then in the Sorcerer's Stone, he's trying to save Harry when he's up on the broomstick. So, you never know with Snape whether he's good or evil, and it could have gone either way. He could have just as easily been a Death Eater and terrible and had betrayed Dumbledore. We don't know. But if either way it went, I would have been okay with it. But in this woman's story, she just needed a little bit more lead up. And that's what I said, is just, we need a little more lead up, or don't make them so good. Don't make them so saintly. Don't make them so Molly Weasley. Because it was a very Molly Weasley character who was just this good, motherly, wonderful, loving character who's suddenly evil, killing people. And it's like, whoa, no, you can't do that. So, just be aware of reader experience and expectations. And when you're taking criticism, realize that is that person's interpretation of your book. Don't have one person critique it. Have a lot of people critique it. That way, if you're doing something and multiple people say it's a problem, you should look at it. And if one person says it's a problem, at least consider it. Say, okay, so maybe I don't agree with you, but could I add another scene in there that maybe leads up to this a little better, so that the person who has the life experience that you have maybe is a little naive, maybe doesn't really know about some of the stuff in here, can transition more easily. So really work on, if you're getting critiques, being grateful for the critique, number one, being open to what's said, even if you don't agree with it, and not attacking the person who critiques you. Me and my brother are both writers, and he actually does a lot of my edits for me. And we both write fantasy, but he doesn't write romance. So sometimes he gives me feedback that's not appropriate for a romance novel, and that's okay. And, I've gotten to the point where I've tried to stop saying anything, because I have before. I've been like, oh, in a romance it's pretty typical. I've tried to stop doing that because I don't want him to think I'm ungrateful for his edits and help. On the other hand, though, he also beta reads a lot. And he stopped doing that for other people because he gets attacked all the time. He was in a lot of groups where you do beta read swaps. We just talked about this weekend. Where you do beta read swaps and you hand people, the swap of their story. And he, done his best. He'd make good notes. And he's a very thorough editor. I mean, he's pretty amazing. He's the person you want to beta read your book, let me tell you. And they would attack him. They would basically be like, how can you say that about my story? You're wrong, you're stupid. To the point that he's like, I don't want to trade beta reads anymore. Unless, him and I trade. But he decided he didn't want to trade in online groups anymore because of that. And that happens so much. And I hadn't had a lot of experience with that, but this weekend I did. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing a lot of beta reading either for that reason. I don't want to spend hours trying to help you for you to attack me. And I'm not saying you as in you, I just mean you as in whoever is on the internet and thinks they want critiqued, but, isn't open to, hey, your book baby isn't perfect, your baby's ugly. It is. And you can fix that, but you have to want to. And you don't have to agree with everything I say. I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm saying this is my experience as a reader of your book. And I'm a book reviewer, and there are books that I review negatively that other people absolutely loved. So a reader experience is very personal. When you put a book out there, there are people who are going to love it and there are people who are going to hate it, and it is hard. It is hard to see that, but you want to put the best book out you can. And I've had books that I put out that I thought were amazing and people, hated. I have 1-star reviews, and you know what? Those people are completely justified in hating their experience with that book. That book was not for them. And maybe I could have done something different that would have made it a better fit for them, but I'm still learning. And in some cases, it's just, it's just a bad match, and that happens too. So if you are getting critiqued, listen to what's said. If you hear it multiple times, definitely change it. And even if you just hear it once, see if it's possible that there's truth in it. And especially if it's something that you can make a small change, just make the small change and make it easier, because if one reader experiences it, there will probably be a few others that do as well, even if it's not the vast majority. So I would love to hear your comments if you've had experience with critiquing or being critiqued, and kind of how you felt about it, any advice you would give, places to exchange beta reads for anybody interested. Also, like my channel and subscribe for more content. All right, guys, thanks so much. Bye.